What's up guys, my name's Luke and welcome back to Motion and Design. So I thought I'd continue the series of recreating some series intros. Over the last few weeks I recreated the Rings of Power intro. I did 3 different tutorials on that, so yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, I'd recommend checking it out, especially the second one. I thought that effect was super cool. But yeah, for this week's tutorial I thought I would try recreate the Last of Us intro. This, compared to the Rings of Power, I can actually say is a really good series. And yeah, the intro is super cool. It's kind of this like fungi growth system. I think they originally did it in probably like Houdini or something like that, but I thought we could get a similar effect by recreating it in X-Particles. X-Particles has this branching system, which is really cool. I remember back in the day, Insidium did a tutorial on ivy growth. And yeah, I used that as inspiration to get this kind of like branching system. So yeah, if you want a more in-depth tutorial on the actual branching system, I'd recommend checking out Insidium training. I think they released all of it for free now. So yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, if you guys are interested in this project file, it is in my Patreon. I spent quite a lot of time on this project file. I thought it was really cool. I had a lot of fun with it and I put a lot of detail into it. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, if you're interested in this project file and a bunch of my other project files, please consider supporting me on Patreon. But if not, a like and a subscribe does go a long way. But yeah, before we do, let's get straight into this. Cool, so let's get a landscape object. Let's make this pretty big. Maybe like 2000 by 2000 should be fine. Let's just increase this by a bit just so we have a little bit more detail. Let's go and add an XP system. And let's bring our emitter all the way to the side here. Let's also just face it downwards so that when the particle hits, it follows the surface. And how we're going to do that is by using a XP follow surface. Let's go to the object tab and put our landscape in there. So now when you press play, the particles should follow the landscape. Super cool. But we don't want this many particles. We actually only want 1. So let's go to shot and change this to 1. Let's also go here into our generators and add in an XP trail. And under the object, let's put in our XP emitter. And now when we press play, we got 1 little particle. Let's change this to 300. And now let's go in and add in our branching system. So let's go under generate and let's add in an XP branch. So now when we press play, nothing happens. But what you will notice is that after a certain amount of time, it stops. So the reason for that is over here, under the max time, it's set to 90 frames. So let's increase this to 300 with minimum time of 90, although that's not really too important for now. And let's also increase the max spin. So let's go 30, hit 20 with a variation of like 5. And now when we press play, we get this more organic, weird movements to it. It's okay if it kind of goes off to the side. Don't worry too much about that. We're going to add more shots later on once we're actually happy with the effect that we have. But yeah, so this is cool, but we want a lot more branches. So let's go over here into our branching tab and let's click on add branch. So if we actually press play now, we got 1 branch and now it branches off a bunch of times, but this does not look at all organic. It doesn't look very nice to be honest. Let's just turn up our follow surface just to 100 so we don't get things like that. Under our branching over here, let's change the max length to 45 and the min length we can keep at 45. Let's also change our bend angle to something like 30 and 20. See how that looks. Actually, this is giving us a lot more of a organic look to it. Or we can take this and we can duplicate it. So now we get even more variety in it. Like, look at that. That is super cool. Creates this really cool organic effect. So in the actual intro, you'll notice that these little sprouts that come out. I thought about doing a separate simulation on top of it, but then I realized we can just add another branching system. Yeah, I mean, shout out to Insidium. They absolutely killed it with that ivy growth system. I think a lot of this tutorial, at least the branching side of it, I learned from there. So yeah, would highly recommend checking that out. But yeah, with our last sub branch selected, let's add 1 more branch. And let's go into our second one over here. That's kind of how, if you want to affect this one, you have to go over here and then you can go to the branching. So we're saying that we want this to branch every 15 to 10. And over here, we only want it to last between 5 and 3. So now when we press play, we should get these little branches you'll see over there. These are going to be our little sprouts later on. Cool, so let's have it that we can actually control every single one of these sub branches. Let's go to our emitter over here, create group. Let's just call this one. And let's just go and create another group to Berkeley. And routes. Let's change the colors of these. Something like that should be fine. And let's go over here and put in 2, 3, and sprouts. Cool, so now when we press play, we'll notice that each of these have their own color. We can have it actually that each of the trails has its own one just by duplicating the trail a few times. Put this over here, going to the groups affected, and applying each of these. Let's also just change the colors so that it actually matches what we had, and this one is blue. Nice. So now we have this little growth system over here. It's also set up that our actual sprouts over here are facing upwards. We can do that with some gravity. So let's go over here into gravity, go into the groups affected, and let's drag in each of our groups. But we only want gravity to affect our sprouts, so let's turn off each of these. And now when we press play again, nothing changes. So the reason for that is that our follow surface is still being applied. So let's go over here into our groups affected and bring in each of these again. And we only want these to be affected, but not the sprouts. So let's turn off the sprouts. And now when we press play, our sprouts are moving downwards. So the reason for that is that our gravity is facing downwards. So let's just change this to 180 degrees. Press play again. And now look, we have our little sprouts over here, which is super cool. So let's just move this emitter a little bit more forward. For now. Cool. And now we get this really cool growth system. Yeah, I'd mess around just by putting the emitter in different places to get different results, and also just by changing the amount of shots that you shoot, just to get a variety of different looks. Cool. So now what we want to do is we want to have it that our sprouts, our fungi over here is actually interacting with geometry. So if we had to go and search for something like wood, let's bring in this. Let's just grab one more, maybe like that one. Cool, let's make both of these bigger because we made the world scale quite big. I actually feel like that might be a little bit too big, probably 10. And let's just set this up a little bit, maybe like that. And I'm not going to spend too much time actually setting up the scene. I feel like you guys should do that, or, just download my project file if you want. But yeah, this should be fine for now. And so now you would think that we could just add it into our XP follow surface over here. Follow surface, I don't know why this happens sometimes. Maybe it happens to you guys too, but randomly it will decide that it's going to forget everything I've done. So look, the group's affected, follow surface is all gone. So let's just redo this again, which is very annoying. Let's just see if we press play again. It's still working, but you'll notice that we're having this glitching. The reason for the glitching is if we had to go into our trails over here, again, they are not linked. Why this happens, I have no idea. If you have any idea, I guess let me know in the comments. And there we go, we are back to square one again. Let's just make sure. And follow surface. Let's just make sure that this one is actually being affected by the initial group. And let's put that up here. Follow surface. And gravity. Okay, cool. Now it's working again. Why that happens, I have no idea. But yeah, if you get some weird results, that is probably why that is happening. Cool, so if we had to take these now and put them inside of our follow surface, you'd kind of presume that it would, follow the surface. So let's press play. See what happens. It kind of does, but if we had to actually look into the geometry, it's going straight through it. So I'm not sure why that happened, it's kind of annoying, but we can work around it. So let's take our landscape from here. And let's get a volume mesher and a volume boulder. Put the boulder inside the mesher and put all of these inside the boulder over here. We can also, let's just duplicate these for now. We're going to call this our geo. We call this collider. We can hide our landscape for now, we don't really need it, and our geo. So you'll notice inside of our volume boulder that for some reason the plane has disappeared. You'd think that maybe if we had to bring this down, it would change it, but no, that does not work. So how we can get around this is inside of our actual boulder over here, mesher, all we need to do is increase our range. And I think something like that should be perfect. Cool, and then let's also bring down our voxel size so that we actually keep to the original. So now it's not too far off from the original. You just might need to bring up the original just by a little bit so that it does work. And then now inside of our, actually hold on, we're getting these bumps and that might show up. Let's just add an SDF smooth and then just bring this down. Where does that work? Okay, let's just increase this a little bit more. Okay, actually let's just increase that instead of smoothing it. That seems to work better. And now inside of our follow surface, let's put in our collider over here and let's see if that works. So it's a little slow. The reason for that is because we have a low voxel size. Let's set this back down to 10. And now when we press play, it will actually go over our geometry, which is super cool. So when caching it, I would recommend just changing our voxel size lower. The reason for that is that now when we show in our other geo, it's going to be a little bit displaced over here because this is a little bit bigger. But that's an easy fix just by bringing down the voxel size over here. Cool, so let's go in and add some geometry to our splines over here. So under generators, let's go in and add a open VDB Mesher. So I'm going to add in 2. You can add in more. I mean, you can have a VDB Mesher for each of these, but at the moment I'm only going to have 1 for all the trails and then 1 for the sprouts, so we can control them individually. But doing it this way, we can have multiple of them and we can literally texture each of these individually, which can also be really powerful. I think the way that I did it in my render is I had 2 passes of the trails, so that there was like one color on the one and another color on the other, so that they kind of displaced between each other, which I thought gave a pretty cool effect. But yeah, for this one, I'm just gonna do it this way. So let's bring in each of our trails. So we got those 3, and this is gonna be the sprouts over here. So just so that we know which ones we're working with. Cool, and let's just start with this one for now. Let's bring down our voxel size, maybe like 2, and our size to maybe around like 3. I think that should be fine. Let's go into our folders, and let's add in a Gaussian. I think this looks pretty cool. I think that's really cool. Having a lot more emitting will give a more detailed result, but we can also get some more extra detail when it comes to the texturing stage. As for that, and now let's add in our sprouts. Let's bring this down to 2 and a radius of maybe 2, then 3, 4. And let's do the same thing. Smooth it out, and then let's add in a Gaussian. But let's bring down the Gaussian blur by quite a bit. Something like that should be fine. The nice thing about this is that we can texture our trails as well. So we can have these little, things that come through, and we can even texture our emitter just by adding in a render tag onto it, whether that's a redshift render tag or an octane render tag. But I think like this should be fine for now. Cool, so how I went about the texturing of this, let me just change this to redshift. Let's open this up over here. Let's go in and add in a standard material. Let's put this on top of our VDBs. And let's open up, actually before we do, let's just add in some sky just so we can actually see what we're doing. Cool. And then let's go over here and add some subsurface scattering. Let's turn that up all the way. Let's go with this kind of yellow with like a something like that, something nasty like that. I mean, the original one was kind of this yellowy look to it. And let's change our scale a little bit. I'm pretty new to redshift, so yeah, if I am doing things wrong, please let me know. Yeah, I've just started learning, but it's been pretty fun so far. Cool, so let's add a little bit more variation to this. Let's go in and add a bump map and some noise. Let's go and add a max on noise. Let's bump this into our roughness over here. Change this to maybe like stubble. I think that's fine. Actually, let's maybe just make it a little bit smaller, so maybe like 0.5. I think that works. So let's throw that into our bump over here. So we get a little bit more variation in this. Let's go duplicate this. And let's change the colors up. Let's make this like more of an orange with a red undertone. And let's get a blender, material blender. And let's blend between these. So if you're doing this in Octane, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out how to redo this. I mean, it's really simple what I'm doing. I definitely am not that great with texturing yet in redshift. So yeah, it's pretty basic what I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, let's change this to maybe like 1. And let's change up our noise a little bit. Maybe. I think something like that works fine. So yeah, this doesn't look great in this type of lighting, but if we had to turn this off and add in a area light, just so my project crashed. So yeah, I'm gonna just break down my other project file. Sorry about that. So just make sure you save. Don't make the same mistakes that I did. But yeah, let me just show you how I did the texturing. So I think I had 2 textures. This was the one. I mainly just have a max on noise that's going through a ramp over here with this kind of like weird yellowy skin colory or reddish. I don't know, it's like nasty looking. And I just have I think a different version of the noise just going into our bump. And then I have another material over here that's both subsurface scattering but kind of mixing between the two. So what I did was that, let's go over here. Come here, me. Turn these off. One thing, when you're caching this out, make sure you turn off the meshers when caching. That'll just make it ridiculously slow. And once it's done, then you just turn back on your meshers. I think I had one more over here. Cool. So the texture didn't look great in the previous project, but what I was trying to show you is that it doesn't look great in that type of lighting, but when you have a little bit more actual dramatic lighting, the subsurface scattering will show quite nicely. And now we get this really nice look over here. Although I should probably turn these on so we can actually see. And now you'll see what I mean, kind of mixing between the two. Some like dark spotches over here with some like more lighter see-through areas. So yeah, this is the scene that I have set up. I have multiple cameras set around it, focusing on different objects, and I have this face at one point. There you are. And a little face over here that's not very pretty looking. And I have the space over here with these similar effects, literally just following the surface, and then some sprouts over here. So one other thing that I added, I'm sure you noticed in the video, was these kind of like other sprouts that were kind of going up. That I did really simply. I took a cylinder here. I added a few more segments into it. Some like, that should be fine. Let's add a cap over here. So like that should be fine. And what I did was I put a displacer onto it with some noise. You'll see why in a second. Make it 1000, and let's just increase that by a bit. So like that, so we have this kind of weird shape to it. And what I did was I took a XP system over here, change the circle, paste it up. Let's just bring down the disk radius a little bit, make sure it's inside of our cylinder over here. And with our cylinder, let's go and add a XP collider and set it to inside. Let's hide this. Let's make sure it works. Cool. And what I did was I added some XP fluid effects with some gravity. Although I don't think I have the gravity very high. And all it's doing is, let me just increase this by a bit. Is having it where it slowly grows upwards. It's definitely not the craziest effect, but I feel like it gave a really cool look. And at the end of the day, it's really the look that matters. It's not really how you get to that look. And then all you need to do is just throw that into a VDB Mesher or a volume builder. And so then all you need to do is throw that into a VDB Mesher or a volume builder. So yeah, I don't want to do multiple simulations of this, so all I did was I took my cylinder over here and changed up the shading over here, just the seed, to get some different results, and also changed the type of noise that it had. And once it was done simming, I cached it out and then exported it as an Alembic. That means all I needed to do was just bring back that Alembic and throw that into a cloner. I did it, I think, 3 different times, so I had 3 different variations. And then inside of a cloner, with them all moving at different speeds, it feels as if each of them are growing individually. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It was a little bit longer than my usual tutorials. I do usually try to keep them around like 10 10-15 minutes. But yeah, this one, just because there was quite a lot to show you, and instead of breaking up into multiple different tutorials, I thought we'd just all do it in one tutorial. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed it and you learned something from it. Again, if you are interested in this project file, it will be in the link in my bio. Yeah, if there's anything else, let me know in the comments. But yeah, until next week,